Yo, what is going on, guys? It is boy Nick here, back again with a brand new video today. We're going to be continuing my series which I review every single Marvel Cinematic Universe film up to the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Today we're going to be reviewing Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings, which is the second film in Phase 4. So Shang-Chi was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton and stars a great cast I'm about to go through. Obviously it stars Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. This is his debut in the MCU and he does an awesome job in this role. He's very charismatic and he's cool and he's badass. And he's got it kind of like, I'm not sure what the word for, I guess kind of like edgy kind of vibe to him, almost like he very much seems somewhat of a rule breaker, but he's funny, he's charming, and he doesn't necessarily come off as a douchebag, which I like. So even though he might push the boundaries a little bit, he's still a good guy. So I think it's really cool to see a character kind of like that in the MCU. He's kind of like Tony Stark in a way. One of the other things I really loved about Shang-Chi is that he's a character from a high-achieving background. However, he's a very grounded and relatable character at the same time. So I think it's cool how, very similar to Thor, he's someone who you wouldn't think would be very relatable at first, but then was made relatable through his story. And I think that Simu Liu does a great job of portraying that very well. Also, Awkwafina is absolutely hysterical as Katie in this movie. She's, in my honest opinion, probably the best sidekick that we've had in a MCU movie since Ned and Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know if sidekick's the right word, but like supporting character to the main antagonist. I think she's probably the best since Ned leads. I really do think that. I think Awkwafina's great in the movie. She has great friendship with Simu Liu in the film. She's really funny too, and I think she does a great job in the movie. One of my favorite aspects about Shang-Chi is that for the first time in a while, we finally have a great villain with Tony Leung, I hope I'm saying his name right, as the Mandarin. The Mandarin is one of the more memorable Marvel villains that we've had in a long time, and Tony Leung plays him very well. One of the things that really upset me about Iron Man 3, if you saw my review for that, was that we were supposed to meet the Mandarin in that film, and it turned out to be the fake Mandarin, and then the Mandarin after that was the real Mandarin, but then he wasn't really the real Mandarin. Really confusing, and I was not a fan of it, but thankfully that mess up retconned this movie. We finally got to meet the real Mandarin, and they didn't let us down. Tony Leung gives a great performance as the character, and he's also a very understanding villain. He's ultimately just a guy who wanted to do what he thought was right for his family, and that's basically the main conflict. He's an understandable villain. I think that this is one of the better villains in the MCU, and they did a great job with it. I'm glad that they did that, especially how badly they butchered it in Iron Man 3. Also, another very talented actress whose name I cannot pronounce, I'll put it on screen somewhere, is really great as the sister, Su Xialing, I believe is how you pronounce it. I believe that's how they said it when I watched the film the other day. She's really good in the movie. We don't get to see her too much, but she's kind of interesting. She's badass. She has somewhat of a different vibe from Shang-Chi. She seems much more traditional to the background that he's from than he does. Because, I mean, he's a rule breaker who goes away from his thing, and she was kind of more traditional. But, I don't know, she's really interesting. I think that she does a great job as the sister in the film. As I said, I really love the family dynamic between this movie. That's what I find really interesting about this movie. That it's almost kind of similar to Black Panther, how Black Panther had a really interesting family conflict going on. That where it's like what happens inside the family actually really matters to the outside world, and this is kind of the same thing with Shang-Chi. It's interesting because these are all people who love each other and they don't hate each other at all, but they have very different ways of going about certain things, and so it's kind of interesting to see that going on there. And I think the family dynamic really makes the film feel a lot more grounded and makes these characters who are ultra badass, who have these like high achieving backgrounds, feel like real people. And I think that the writers and the actors do a great job of showing that. And even though I'm not a fan of the fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3, it was cool to see Ben Kingsley come back as Trevor, who's the actor who did the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. I'm sorry if that sounds confusing. If you've seen Iron Man 3, you know what I mean. And even though I wasn't a fan of what they did with the Mandarin in that movie, Ben Kingsley's still pretty funny, and it's cool to see him just be Trevor in this movie as opposed to just being a fake Mandarin. And he actually adds quite a bit of funny stuff going on. There's one thing that I won't go too deep into where he talks about Planet of the Apes inspiring his acting career, which I think is I think it's hilarious. I remember people in the theaters dying of laughter during that scene. I don't know. I think Ben Kingsley, he was given a second shot to be cool in the MCU, and I think he passed with flying colors, so it was cool to see Ben Kingsley again. Also, the return of Abomination. Now, we don't actually get to see Tim Roth in the role, but we get to see the Abomination come back in a fight scene. It was a cool little thing, too, the Incredible Hulk. I just thought that was cool, considering that we haven't seen him since then, so it was just cool to see Abomination there again. Another person in this movie I really liked was Michelle Yeoh as Ying Nan. I hope I'm saying that right. I'll put it on screen if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Michelle Yeoh is a great actress. She's someone that I've come to like a lot within some more recent movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once. And seeing her in this movie just made me realize how cool of an actor she really is. And she's kind of one of the more side characters in the movie, but she's also one of the more memorable aspects. And she's a really cool leader of this kind of like army that the Ten Rings got going on. And I don't know, she does a great job at it, and Michelle Yeoh is just a badass actor, so it's cool to see her in a movie like this. This film also had a lot of really great jokes, and like there's some running gags in this film and stuff that like for me never got old. I know some people don't like jokes in the MCU, but this is one of those movies where the jokes actually landed very well. It reminds me kind of a lot of the first Iron Man movie. It's a great origin story with great humor in it, so I'm glad that the humor worked as well as it did. Now we're getting to the really good stuff. The special effects in this movie are, in my opinion, some of the best special effects that the MCU's had in a while. I think the CGI in this film is spectacular. I think it, for the most part, looks pretty consistent. I can't really remember any times where the CGI didn't look convincing to me. I mean, when you watch it, you do know that it's a generated image on a computer screen, but it's so detailed and nice that like you don't even think about it, and it provides for a lot of really cool spectacle in the film. Of course, we got to talk about the martial arts aspect of this film. This is one of the freshest aspects of Shang-Chi that really shook things up in the MCU, was to make it have a lot of nostalgia to a lot of old martial arts movies, and it was really cool to see. We get some amazing action sequences out of it, especially the bus sequence. I love that sequence so much. I remember seeing that in the theaters, just being in awe of it. What's actually cool is the amount of stunt work that went into that scene, and the amount of stunt work that went into this film in general is truly remarkable. You got to give credit to the people who really put their all into the stunts, into the actors, into the people with the cameras who had to do all this crazy movement with all this stuff. And I like how the fact that it wasn't all just done using computers. They actually used a lot of practical stuff too. And you get some really intense fighting sequences here. And I really do mean intense. Like, you get a lot of really cool, really well shot scenes of people throwing stuff and people with knives, where it's like the knife will come up to the camera like this and then go like that. And like it's so fast paced and looks kind of like stuff out of the Matrix, but it's very intense with the characters, and just it feels like there's like real stakes going on when there's fighting. So I like the fact how this film has some of the CGI stuff, but it also has some of the lesser, not so much CGI, just really well choreographed, well shot action sequences. One of the other things that's really great about Shang-Chi was I like how it actually provided a backstory for the Ten Rings. For those of you who don't know, the Ten Rings is probably the most crucial piece of history, or one of, for the MCU. The Ten Rings were the people who kidnapped Iron Man in the first Iron Man movie. We saw a little bit more of them in Iron Man and Iron Man 2, but it was cool to see that the Ten Rings actually existed before it was a terrorist group. It was actually something more than that, and it was kind of cool to see the Ten Rings, like the origins of it, and see what it really meant, as opposed to just they were always bad. It erases that whole black and white stuff and makes it more of a gray area. So it was really cool to see the Ten Rings be portrayed in a less black and white kind of way. And even though we don't see Wong too much in the movie, it's cool to see what's been going on with Wong since Infinity War and Endgame. I don't know, just cool to see Wong again, I guess. Not to mention, just like how I said with Black Panther, it was awesome to see a superhero movie starring a predominantly black cast. It's also awesome to see a superhero movie starring a predominantly Asian cast. I really like seeing Marvel step outside the comfort zone and make movies that represent all sorts of people. It's really cool how now they're making movies that which everyone can see themselves in. And what I really like is that the representation in the film matters a lot, but they also make a really good story out of it, and that's what I really appreciate. And I think it's really cool that that Marvel's now making movies to where, like, everyone can see it. But yeah, huge props to Marvel for making a movie with more Asian representation. I think we need more of that in the MCU. It's really cool to see minorities get represented in the MCU. I do have some flaws with the movie. It's nothing too major. They're actually very minor flaws with the film, because I think this film is really great. It's like almost no flaws. Just a few things that for me didn't work. The sister takes somewhat of a back seat in this movie, which I do understand because this is the origin story for Shang-Chi, and so it makes sense that Xu wouldn't be in it as much, but I kind of just felt like had we seen a little bit more of her, it would have been cool. But I'm hoping that maybe we will see her in the next time she comes out, whether it's going to be the second Shang-Chi, or if they decide to throw Shang-Chi into the Avengers or something like that. It would just be cool to see more of her again, because she's kind of a cool character that I think would be... She's intriguing. It would be cool to see her more. Kind of like how I really like Shuri in Black Panther, and it's cool what they've done with Shuri. I would like to see them do that with Shang-Chi's sister. And one other thing I kind of wrote, and this isn't necessarily a huge thing that I have an issue with, but there's like two battles going on at the same time during the final act of the movie, where it's like the big CGI one going on between the family, and then we have the other Army 10 Rings one going on over there. And so we kind of have like two, I mean, it's all one war kind of, but we got like two battles going on at the same time, and sometimes we go like back and forth between the two of them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It actually balances it pretty well. But when you go back and forth between the two, at times the tension could feel like it's cut just a little bit, but not enough to ruin the movie. It's just a small little gripe I have. And something that I forgot to write down in my notes, but thankfully I have it memorized. I do want to talk about the post-credit scenes for a second. So these are spoiler parts, so I'll make sure that I put a timestamp so you can just see the rating if that's what you want to see. The first thing was whenever we see the portal open and Shang-Chi goes to the portal where there's Wong and there's Banner and I believe Captain Marvel. I'm going to look that up real quick. I'm not entirely sure about that. Yes, I was right. So it's Shang-Chi and Katie. They walk through the portal to see Wong, and then we all see the holograms of Banner as well as Captain Marvel. So it's cool to see that those two are still sticking around post Endgame, and I guess they're going to do more with them in the future, so I'm excited to see that. And it's cool to kind of see that there's like a richer thing with the 10 rings, which, from what I know, I don't think it's actually been explained all too much yet, but it seems like the 10 rings have a lot more to them than we initially thought. So I think it's cool how we're going to see more of the 10 rings. We're going to see more Shang-Chi, which I think is really cool. And something else that I noticed that I didn't first understand when I saw Shang-Chi, but now after having rewatched the Marvel movies, I understand is that Banner has his arm in a cast. At first I didn't understand that, but then I rewatched Endgame, and I remember that he did the Infinity Gauntlet, so his arm's recovering. I don't know, just details there. Because it's cool for me to see that this post-credit scene shows that Shang-Chi is going to come back at some point. We're going to see more stuff with the rings, more stuff with Hulk, more stuff with Wong, more stuff with Captain Marvel. It's not a whole lot going on in the scene, but it's cool to see that we're going to see more of that. And we also have the other post-credit scene where it seems like the sister is taking over the 10 rings, and I think that's really cool. I think that opens a lot of exciting possibilities. I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Shang-Chi and the 10 rings in the future. So overall, Shang-Chi is an excellent superhero origin story movie. It's one of my favorite origin story films that we've had in the MCU. I think it's one of the better Marvel movies. It's also very original. I think it's an excellent film. It's actually one of my favorite films from 2021. It's also just one of my favorite films in recent memory. It's like one of my favorites in Phase 4 as well. Shang-Chi is an excellent movie. My gripes with it are so small, it doesn't matter all too much. I'm giving Shang-Chi an overall rating of a 9.5 out of 10, and I'm going to give it an overall grade of an A. So that was my review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Make sure that you tune into my channel. There's a few more days to watch my review of the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Eternals. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified about latest videos. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought. And yeah, that's been it. Peace.